Preparing to live stream the meeting. Admit all.
We're just waiting for everyone to log on before we get started. Thank you for joining us.
All right, let's see, it looks like a lot of people are joining. Just gonna give everyone a couple more seconds to pop in. All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone, community members, youth and young adults, and providers. Welcome to the Youth Task Force Reach Out and Youth Homelessness Campaign Kickoff. My name is Ariel Peters. My pronouns are they and she. Youth Program Manager at Homeless Alliance of Western New York and co-chair of the Youth Task Force. So I'm just going to go over some quick housekeeping before we get started here. So if you want to go to the next slide. So today's presentation is being recorded. It's being live streamed on Facebook. And afterwards, we're going to share it on our Facebook page, and we encourage everyone else to share it as well. If everyone can stay muted for the presentation, put your questions into the chat box. Jarrett is going to be moderating that, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation when our guest panelists speak. Like I said, we'll be moderating the chat, and everything will be taken care of at the end of the presentation. So I'd like to introduce my co-chair of the Youth Task Force, Nadia Pizarro, and our Youth Action Board representative, Taniva Dennis. So Nadia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Ariel. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our Reach Out and Youth Homelessness Campaign Kickoff. My name is Nadia Pizarro. I am Homeless Services Program Director for Best Self Behavioral Health, and I'm also co-chair of the Youth Task Force. Very excited to be here with you all, and also to introduce our other co-presenter, Taniva.
Hi, I'm Taniva Dennis. I'm a Youth Action Board representative, and she, her pronouns.
So the Youth Task Force is launching our third part of our campaign to end youth homelessness. First was our BeCounted campaign, followed by our SpeakOut campaign, and now our third is Reach Out and Youth Homelessness, which is why you are all here today. Our goal with the Reach Out and Youth Homelessness campaign, and we'll go into that further throughout the presentation, is to ensure our neighbors know who they can reach out to for help, what resources available, and why this issue is so important. Ariel?
Thanks, Nadia. So although we face so many challenges to ending homelessness in our community, like unaffordable housing, stagnant wages, poverty, and structural racism, by really listening to our community and engaging our community in dialogue, by ensuring youth and young adults are leading the way and leading this process, and by implementing the solutions that youth and young adults come up with, we can work together to create a future without homelessness in Western New York. Geneva.
Okay. Today we will discuss how youth are affected by homelessness in our community, what that homelessness looks like, and resources we have available for youth affected by homelessness and housing instability. We are hoping that community members, youth, and providers tune in and share this discussion on social media. We also welcome questions in the chat on Zoom or Facebook Live, and they will be answered by our panelists at the end. Thank you for joining us, and we'll dive into the discussion.
Thanks, Geneva. All right, so we're going to start with basically who we are. Who are we and what are we doing? So the Youth Task Force is made up of many different people in the community who share the common goal of ending youth homelessness. Our Youth Action Board members, so those are young people ages 15 to 24 who've experienced homelessness or housing instability in their lives. Homeless Alliance of Western New York, we're the Continuum of Care lead agency. We coordinate funding and different collaborations in the community. Western New York Coalition for the Homeless, which is a very large collaboration of service providers who come together and share ideas and solutions, information, and work together to get people housed, to get more resources, really just to raise awareness about these issues. We have local service providers from the community. Many of them are here today, and we have some of them as our panelists at the end of this presentation. And there's community members from Western New York, Erie, Niagara, Genesee, Orleans, Wyoming counties. Just people in the community that really want to make a difference and are impacted by this. And we always encourage community members to, come forward and join us on the Youth Task Force as we work towards ending youth homelessness. Go to the next slide.
So what is the Reach Out campaign? So in order to explain that, we have to go back a little further to our other two campaigns to end youth homelessness. And we've been working on this for almost a decade now, and this is our last and final campaign, and it's just really excited to get to this point now. We started with BeCounted. BeCounted was literally a campaign to find and count as many youth experiencing homelessness as possible to collect the data that we needed to basically prove that they exist. Because unless we have the data and we can count them, they're just not counted. We use that data to be able to apply for a highly competitive HUD grant, and we're awarded $3.59 million for the most innovative programs to really create a new system to end youth homelessness in Western New York. So that BeCounted campaign was huge. We really worked to engage so many service providers, community members, and the data that we collected was unbelievable. It was really able to show us that what we believed as service providers and community members was absolutely correct. We were able to prove that there were youth that are experiencing homelessness and all of the issues that come along with that. After being able to find and engage those youth, we had an event before the pandemic. It was our first annual event, and we will be bringing this as an annual event every year once this is over, called Speak Out and Youth Homelessness, where we invited those youth to be able to give their voice and gave a platform for them to tell their stories about what ending youth homelessness meant to them. And boy, did they. We invited them to do that by any artistic medium, including song, dance. It was just a truly amazing event that we will be bringing back. But now that we were able to give them that platform, now it's time for us as a community to work together, to reach out to each other, to reach out to these youth, and to reach out to providers that can help them to move forward in our lives, and we can work together to end youth homelessness together. So thank you for being a part of this today. Next slide. So why is this campaign important? Based on that reach out homeless specific count, we were able to get very robust numbers. Also, we collaborated with school systems, including, thank you, huge shout out to Buffalo Public Schools, who actually added our questions to their annual, or every other year, they do a behavioral risk survey with Buffalo Public School youth, and we were able to collect a lot of data. But the data doesn't lie. What it shows is in 2018, we had 745 unaccompanied youth between the ages of 12 and 24 who access homeless services. Now, those are the ones who access services. That there could be double that amount of number who did not reach out. And so that's why it's really important that as a community, we know what services are available. A breakdown of the numbers for 2020, we had 621 homeless youth and 427 at-risk youth, for a total of 1,048 youth who reached out to access services. But as we know, it could be upwards to 3,000 youth that actually need these services that are either homeless or at risk or couch surfing in unsafe places. We found the reasons for the homelessness to be what we thought. There's a lot of stigma around youth that are experiencing homelessness, that they're, in quote, bad kids. What we found is a lot of family conflict. We found conflict for different issues. There could be youth that are, getting into an age of young adulthood, and there's conflicts between the expression of that. But then we found a lot of family conflicts that are due to issues like poverty, substance abuse, and untreated mental health in the home that made it an unsafe place for them to live. Those are also exacerbated by loss of income, and the COVID-19 pandemic has really made the situation even worse. The lack of mental health and substance use treatment options, has exacerbated things as well. The dangers that we find are exposure to violence and human trafficking, which we'll talk about more in the presentation, untreated mental health and substance use, risky sexual behaviors, which include unwanted pregnancies, HIV, and STDs, as well as trauma that affects them for their entire lives and also affects our communities. Next slide. Ariel.
So a little bit, thank you. So a little bit, just the breakdown. This information is from our coordinated community plan to end youth homelessness, that along with our youth task force, youth action board, and community members developed. So we have kind of a breakdown. I think the important takeaways are that youth of color, especially Black youth and youth that identify as LGBTQ+, are, more likely they experience homelessness, at higher rates, even though, for example, 13% of the population in Erie County is Black. However, Black youth represent over 55% of youth who are experiencing homelessness. We have white youth at 29%, multiracial at 10%, and Native American 1.3%. In terms of gender identity, this is very similar to the adult population. It's just about half and half, young men and young female identifying youth who are often young mothers. 0.5% trans youth, trans identifying youth. That number we believe is a huge underestimate. Only recently has there been more emphasis of collecting data on youth who are trans or LGBTQ, and we're working to ensure that providers are always collecting that information so we can figure out how to better serve those young people. And sexual orientation, we found through different surveys, through Buffalo Public Schools, risk behavior analysis survey Nadia mentioned, through our data that providers, shelters and housing agencies collect, we found that the number is anywhere between 25 to 40% of youth experiencing homelessness disclose that they are LGBTQ plus youth. These numbers are, it's very disheartening, right? We really need to focus on, how do we make this a more inclusive community for youth? How do we make more, gender affirming and sexual orientation affirming providers in our community? And also, we need to really take a good hard look at that structural and institutionalized racism in our community. And that's something that we're really focusing on, especially in terms of data and quality improvement of our organizations. Are we serving young people in an equitable way? Do the next slide. So we have a guest, Julie. Would you like to introduce yourself and go right ahead with the human trafficking?
Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julie Bukowski. I am the Specialized Housing and Medical Coordinator at the International Institute of Buffalo within our Survivor Support Services Department. Our department is kind of divided into two systems, and our main system is working with human trafficking. We work with foreign-born and U.S. citizens as well as youth. So this is extremely relevant and really important to bring awareness around how homelessness housing instability is a key factor of vulnerability for youth, to expose them in exploitation of trafficking. And so in 2018, our department assisted about 115 youth who either were referred to us through schools, through counselors, or through friends, and to access services around human trafficking. As the slide shows, about 67% of these youth were involved in the child welfare system. It's a very high number. A surprising fact is that about 99% were U.S. citizens. Most folks, when we start talking about human trafficking, whether it's sex or labor trafficking, have an assumption that happens only to foreign-born folks or folks who are not from here. That is not true. The majority of the clients that we serve are U.S. citizens. Young people experiencing homelessness are at risk for human trafficking because they're forced into unsafe sexual situations in exchange for a place to sleep at night. We'll get into a little bit more about laws around that in New York State. Next slide, please. Yeah. So kind of knowing the signs, what to be aware of. And all of these signs are not necessarily indicators that, yes, a youth is involved in a trafficking situation. And at the same time, though, these are things that we commonly see with the youth that we serve, that they have one or two of these red flags that are pretty predominant. And so under the 18, knowing the signs, we talk about a young person who's 17 or younger with an adult sexual partner, maybe letting that youth stay with them because they have nowhere to go. So sometimes when we're seeing young people with a much older boyfriend, that is definitely boyfriend, girlfriend, is definitely some of the signs that we regularly see with our youth. And again, with our youth who fall in that 18 and older, couch surfing or staying with people who are forcing them into sexual situations in exchange for a place to stay. So in Erie County, finding shelter for those under the age of 18 is a very difficult thing. And even for our 18 and older youth, many of them have been involved in different systems where they're not comfortable. They don't trust those systems. They're afraid. And so couch surfing definitely becomes part of their day-to-day survival. And what happens is that oftentimes you run out of places to stay. And so that puts you at a much higher vulnerability for being trafficked. And when we're talking about trafficking, we're talking both labor and sex trafficking. And survival sex is the exchange of sex for a place to stay, food, protection, or other basic needs. And here in New York State, we have the Safe Harbor Act, which means that anyone under the age of 18 who is doing survival sex work in order to meet their basic needs is automatically under the law identified as a survivor of human trafficking. So that's something that we like to just talk about a little bit in our program is, sometimes you'll hear folks say words like a teen prostitution. There is no such thing as that here in New York State. And most of the time, folks are doing survival sex in order to have a place to stay that night. So some of the red flags, we talk about, of course, physical injuries, branding, tattoos specific to their trafficker. For our young people, we often see hotel keys, several phones being given to them by their trafficker. And again, that older boyfriend, girlfriend is definitely a red flag. Next slide, please. So, again, young folks are not going to get in trouble. We work with a lot of youth, homeless youth and at risk for being homeless youth who are afraid of, talking to whether it's the authorities. They can come to us. We, of course, are mandated reporters, but we will also not involve police unless we absolutely have to due to mandates. And so I think it's really important that, there are places for youth to talk to about these things. And again, if you think that someone is unsafe or you think that they're in an unsafe situation, please call 211. There are resources, and a little bit later, I will give some information specific about the International Institute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Taniva, you want to go ahead with the next slide?
Yes. How you can help youth who are experiencing homelessness. Young people don't tell that they're homeless a lot, and that could be for many reasons. And you might not even think that they're experiencing it because, to them, it might not be something that they want other people to know. And if you expect a young person might not have a safe or a stable place to stay, you can let them know that where they can go.
Next slide.
Okay, what youth homelessness may look like. A young person experiencing homelessness may couch surf, and that's basically staying from couch to couch, friend to friend, family member to family member house, often being seen outside or on the street, selling drugs or other things like personal possessions for money, not having access to showers, clean clothes, laundry, and hygiene supplies. They may be carrying bags with them backpacks, luggages, suitcases. They won't have enough money for food or clothing. They may engage in sex work or be a survivor of human trafficking. And youth who may experience homelessness could really look like anything. So ask. And if you see any of these signs, reach out. Next slide. And how you can help. Call 211, and there are emergency 24-hour hotlines at shelters. One is Compass House, which is in Erie County, and the other is at Casey's House, which is in Niagara County. You can educate other community members on the facts about youth homelessness. And we have many services available and partners that can't fit in this presentation. So visit our website on Facebook to learn more.
Thank you so much, Taniba. And I just kind of want to reiterate, there's a lot of services out there. And I think sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming to try to figure out, where, who should I call? Like, am I eligible as a young person? Is this young person I'm working with eligible? Compass House and Casey House both have a 24-hour hotline. You can call if you have questions about eligibility, you're not sure. You just need to know where a young person can go. You can call them, and using 211, it's a really great resource. You kind of express to them like who you are, what your issue is, give them some info, and they can help you figure out what the best resource is for you. So again, it can be kind of overwhelming, but when you're in doubt, just call 211. And like Taniba said, we have up on our link to our Facebook page and our Homeless Alliance website. If you're interested in seeing the huge list of partners that we have for the task force, and also a resource guide specific to unaccompanied youth, just visit our website. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about newer services that we have for unaccompanied youth experiencing homelessness. Nadia had mentioned earlier in the presentation, we did get a grant from HUD called the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program grant. And it really helped us to go through the strategic planning process, map out the youth homelessness system in Western New York, gather a lot of data, and then work with our youth action board to develop several new programs that can serve these youth. So Compass House and Best Self have drop-in centers. Compass House has a drop-in center from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's on Main Street. Young people ages 14 to 24 can drop in. They can talk to a case manager. They can just kind of, if they just need someone to talk to, they need some food, some toiletries, pop in there. And then Safe Space drop-in center. It's an overnight drop-in center for young people on Niagara Street. Our family engagement team. So we have Best Self has a family engagement team that can work with youth who are at risk of homelessness to help resolve maybe potentially family conflict, help them find an apartment, kind of help them get started independently, or move them with a relative or other caretaker. And it really focuses on those like permanent connections for youth and getting them, really involved in the community and building up that social capital. Compass House Transitional and Rapid Rehousing. That's a housing program where youth ages 18 to 24 can get help finding their own apartment, case management, connection to other services, things like that. We also have Teaching and Restoring Youth, TRY. That is for female identifying young people, and it's a transitional housing, which means it offers a temporary place that they can stay until they either get back on their own feet, back with their family, or they can move on to get their own apartment as well. So this is Erie County. Next slide. Some of our new programs in Niagara County, Pinnacle Community Services also has a family engagement team. So like I said, that's really focusing on building up that social capital and really helping to resolve conflict in the home. So that can be a stable environment for that young person to be in. And Community Missions also has a transitional and rapid rehousing program. Help finding an apartment, if they need a temporary place to stay until they can get back on their own feet, and really housing them in the community where they feel comfortable, and helping them, with employment, getting connected to education, enrolling in college, counseling, anything that the youth wants to work on. And I really want to kind of reiterate too that these programs, the number one goal is just getting that young person housed. There aren't preconditions, like a young person has to be sober, or they have to, not have a mental health concern. The main goal is getting them housed or getting them just some stability, and then working with that young person individually to determine what are their own goals and what do they want to work on and what do they need to work on to get to where they want to go. I think we can go next slide. And Taniva?
What will you do to end youth homelessness? Be counted, speak out, and reach out. Help us make sure all youth are counted, can speak their truth, and always reach out to a youth in, I can't see the bottom.
The youth in need. Part of
Pardon?
service providers for help. Thank you so much, Taniva.
You're welcome.
Oh, I got cut off a bit. Yes, be counted, speak out, and reach out. So starting right now, we're gonna have a huge presence on social media as we move forward in our campaign, but we really need your help as a community as well. Take to your social media pages, share this presentation. We're gonna make this available as a recording. We're gonna post up some resources as well on our Facebook page, and reach out to us if you wanna get involved in this effort. It really takes the whole community, a community-wide effort to end youth homelessness. And if you're a young person who has experienced housing instability or homelessness, please consider joining our Youth Action Board. Our Youth Action Board representatives, Taniva and Sale, are going to talk a little bit about what that Youth Action Board is in a minute. So please, like we said, reach out, reach out to get involved. If you know a young person who needs help, reach out to them, reach out for them, and help kind of just spread the word, about the resources that we do have in the community. So now I'm going to introduce our panelists. Or Nadia, did you want to?
No, great job, Ariel. Go right ahead.
All right. So I'm going to introduce our panelists who are going to talk just briefly about their area of expertise, answer some questions from the chat, and then just talk a little bit about the services that they provide. So first, I'm going to introduce Taniva and Sale, our Youth Action Board representatives, to talk a little bit about the Youth Action Board. So Taniva, would you like to start? Just maybe talk a little bit about what the Youth Action Board is and how you can get involved.
Okay, I'm Taniva, and the Youth Action Board, it's like a collective of youth, but it's more like a family of youth who come together, and we use what we know about what we've been through to be the voice for the other youth in the community and help be the voice for the change that needs to happen. And we come together every other week, and if there's like things we do, because we're doing like the summer lunch program, we'll meet more to do that, but usually it's every other week on a Tuesday. And to get involved, you can reach out to Ariel. I'm sure she'll have her contact information up, and then just ask questions. And yeah. And now Sue. Sal.
Yep. Sale, are you on the call? It's hard to see everyone.
Yeah.
Hi, Sale. You want to introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about the Youth Action Board, like what you've been doing on the Youth Action Board, and a little bit maybe about what do you like about it?
So my name is Sal, and what I like about the Youth Action Board is that it's fun while helping the community. So what we do, we've done a lot of fun stuff. We've painted a mural last month, which was pretty awesome. Then we've also had concerts in the past, and we've done the summer lunch programs too. We've been there too. We do a lot bi-weekly. We do a lot of things, coming up with new ideas and stuff like that, and just helping the community. So it's pretty fun.
I could just quickly interject. I can't tell you as a co-facilitator with Ariel of the Youth Action Board how amazing these youth are. And they're too humble to tell you all, but they were a part of every single part of this planning process. All of these projects they designed, they gave their feedback on. It was really amazing to have them walk into one of the transitional houses that they planned, and to be able to paint a mural there was really an awesome thing to see. They have been leading the way, and they are definitely an exception to the thought process that our youth do not have abilities to lead, that they don't have voices as important as adults do at the table. They have certainly proved that wrong, and have shown tremendous leadership, as well as applying and being accepted into the National Youth Action Society, where they have a presence nationally on ending youth homelessness. So big round of applause for them.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you so much to Neva and Sal. So next, Sue, if you'd like to introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about the services that you provide, and maybe a little bit about the relationship between homelessness and LGBTQ plus youth.
Sure, thank you, Ariel. So I'm Sue Frawley. I'm the Community and Parent Outreach Coordinator for GLIS, Growing LGBTQ plus Youth Support of Western New York. And it's an honor for GLIS to be part of this committee and part of this project. GLIS was founded almost 38 years ago as a result of awareness of homelessness amongst, at that time, gay teens. And it was at the same time as the HIV crisis and AIDS crisis rising. So GLIS has always had as its fundamental mission the reduction of homelessness for LGBTQ youth. And we've done that in a variety of ways. We have drop-in centers, we have support groups, we're doing educational outreach, and not just to schools, but we've really expanded, working with the courts, working with police, working with medical. Because as we talk about this issue of homelessness, it's not just, oh, a teen is homeless. There are so many factors that come into this. And one of the things that we know for LGBTQ youth, who, by the way, and Ariel talked about this percentage, that they represent almost 40%, which is interesting because LGBTQ youth are about 10% of the population. So there's a very disproportionate representation when we look at youth who are in the system. And even that sometimes is not fully represented, because sometimes LGBTQ youth do not want to identify because there are so many other mitigating aspects, and there are not always receptive spaces where these youth can go for services. We're very lucky in Erie County and in Niagara that we have places that youth can go to, but understand that many times these youth come into a homeless state, sometimes because of failures in the foster care system, failures in education, aspects of poverty, the lack of affordable housing, discrimination, And we've already talked immensely about the sex trafficking, which is so high in Western New York. And again, where LGBTQ youth have a very disproportionate numbering. So GLIS, in our many efforts, we do reach out to connect youth with the services, many of which you've heard about today, as well as to give them support along the way, and also to be present in educating our many providers so that they then can be welcoming and informed sources so that all of these youth can find a safe space to find haven. Thank you, Ariel, and thanks, Nadia, and thanks, Taneva.
Thank you, Sue. And then I'm going to have Julie introduce yourself again. And same thing, maybe talk a little bit about what you do in the services. And I think you kind of covered the relationship between homelessness, you know, and human trafficking earlier. But I mean, if you'd like to add to that, go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. So again, I'm Julie Bukowski. I'm the coordinator of our specialized housing and medical services at the International Institute of Buffalo within our Survivor Support Services Department. We have 3 full-time youth case managers who work not only with identified trafficked youth, but also at-risk trafficked youth. Because as we know, youth who are who have housing instability issues put them at a much higher vulnerability for both sex and labor trafficking. And so a lot of our services really revolve around, unfortunately, we are not a shelter. We often wish that we could be, just like so many of all of these different organizations. We so wish that, you know, we had funds to actually have our own shelter, and we don't. But a lot of our services with the youth in our community are around safety. You know, our case managers building rapport with youth so that youth know that we're a safe place to come. That we are there to, you know, link them to different services, link them to different homeless services, link them to, you know, the drop-in centers, places that are safe for them to go when maybe they don't feel like they have a safe place to go or are not aware of what places they can go to. So our case managers really work on rapport building. Safety is kind of our first barrier that we really work along with our youth that we're working with. And then of course, you know, housing. We do have a specialized housing program that we can assist 18 and up with that, but we know that within the community that housing limitations have increased, and even you know, throughout the COVID pandemic have our rent rates have increased tremendously, which of course puts youth at a much higher risk for being homeless.
Thank you so much, Julie. And then Susan, if you want to, are you on the call? Can't see.
I am, yes.
All right, cool. If you want to introduce yourself, and I apologize, I have your title, but I somehow deleted where you work. So if you want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do, you know, and then some of your concerns about youth homelessness in the community.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ariel. My name is Susan Pataccio. I am a librarian with the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library System. I work for the Children's Outreach and Programming team. I became involved with the youth task force because we libraries, especially in, I can speak to Buffalo and Erie County, there are 37 locations all throughout Erie County, from way down south in Collins all the way up to Niagara Wheatfield. And we are in communities where teens come, kids will come after school for internet. And sometimes we are that trusted third space where people know where they can come to be safe, have a quiet place, have internet. And we also have programming in which we are privileged enough to serve as trusted adults to kids that maybe would not be able to reach out to people because of a lot of the issues that Ariel and Julie mentioned, you know, fear of getting in trouble or fear of having a mental health crisis or things like that, that they're going to end up someplace that's not good for them. So sometimes we will get those questions, you know, the library is about to close and someone will, you know, come to us and say, where can I go? I need somewhere to be tonight or tomorrow, or, you know, I think my mom is going to kick me out of the house. So finding out about the task force and how dedicated everyone is in our community to making sure that kids are getting, youth and young adults are getting quality care when they reach out is so very important. And I cannot stress enough how amazing the people in our community are that work in this field, and that, you know, we can be confident that when we send youth to the services, that they're gonna you know, be treated with dignity and be safe, and as Ariel said, be able to work on the things that have value to them, and that hopefully they'll come to the library again to work on developing themselves, you know, working on resumes, finding a job, learning new skills. Those are things that we are here to help youth accomplish. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. And I also want to give a huge shout out to you, Susan. She has made our PowerPoint look nice. It was very boring when I first started it. So Susan has really just, you know, lent us her graphic design skills with flyers, with PowerPoints, with posters. So shout out to you, Susan. All right, thank you all so much. So I want to just take the last, you know, couple minutes that we have together for some questions. So I'm gonna open it up. I think we can open it up real quick. If anyone wants to ask a question, if you want to raise your hand with the little hand raise feature in Zoom, and we can unmute you to ask a question.
Jared, do you want to go ahead and stop sharing so we could all see each other? And really quick, big shout out to Jared, also our IT specialist. Thank you, Jared, for helping us put this all together. And I echo Sue, you are definitely awesome with your graphic design. She has been a great team player here. So any questions?
Let's see everyone.
This is Hillary. Can you see me?
Hi, Hillary. Thank you for joining us
Go ahead.
today.
I'm really excited that I was able to get on. I always have trouble with technology in my office. If I'm away from my office, I'm fine. Anyway. So I liked what the last speaker was saying about if someone thinks that they might get kicked out, because we have a lot of young people in our program, and sometimes they're having friction and they're about to turn 18 and things like that. So being able to plan ahead is really nice, but it's hard to actually do that. So is there, when like the hotlines and things like that, do they take questions about what happens if?
That is a great question. So our family engagement team programs work with youth who are homeless and at risk of being homeless. So those youth would fit into that category. You can call 211 for general questions, or those hotlines that could, refer you to the family engagement teams. But that's really their role to try to kind of figure out what's going on, where the conflict is, to be able to do some mediation, and also help them to identify what may be a stable location for them to go, say they did get kicked out temporarily. And to find another safe place for them to go, whether it be a family member, a friend, or a family of choice, where they can go temporarily while we resolve the issue, so that they could go back home permanently or find other permanent housing situations.
So you were suggesting that they call Compass House and they have family engagement teams?
Well, actually, the family engagement team is through Best Self Behavioral Health. They have our
Okay.
team leader, Patrick Russell, on the call, as well as our family engagement team members, Megan and Ashley. So you could call us directly. We have the youth resource guide that we're going to be sending out, included in this, that has that number, and it's also available on one of the slides.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nadia. I was gonna jump in and say, our youth resource guide and our youth homelessness demonstration program resource guide, I'm gonna post them both on the Facebook page, and they are on the Homeless Alliance website. So I'm gonna post up all those links in this the Facebook event page and our Youth Task Force of Western New York page. And if you don't yet follow us, give us a like on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, like I said, we post the things up on our Homeless Alliance of Western New York website as well.
And really quickly to note, if they do become homeless, please contact Compass House immediately for Erie County and community missions for Niagara County.
So what other questions?
I see a hand raised. Hello.
Hello, I guess that's me. I don't see anyone else's hand raised.
Yes,
So-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we hear $3.59 million and we all think that that's a lot of money. But when we are faced with not only having to temporarily house kids and then find them permanent housing, and then to think about the whole concept of how to prevent this in the first place and how to keep families together, like with the family team that you have. Can you talk a little bit more about, the strategic way in which those dollars are spent and exactly how the program is set up? I think I understand a little bit about it, but I think some people listening to this may not have a grasp of all that.
I think I can talk a little bit, and then Nadia, if you want to add. I guess I'll go back to sort of our planning process when we were first awarded the grant. Well, even before that, the Youth Task Force had developed sort of some strategic issues and some goals, after doing a needs assessment of the community, looking at the data and saying, okay, these are the gaps, and these are the resources that we are hoping can fill these gaps. After we were awarded that grant, we went through an even more intense and rigorous strategic planning process that, I see many of you on the call here today can attest to. So our Youth Task Force, along with, community stakeholders, government stakeholders, community members, and our Youth Action Board kind of went through and looked at, okay, deeper dive into the needs assessment. These are our needs. These are the gaps. Okay, like what kind of programming do we think might be able to fill in those gaps, given, the amount of dollars that we have, which kind of like Robert had said, it sounds like a lot of money, but in all reality, when it comes to homelessness, it's really not. So we had an independent project selection committee after several agencies applied for the programs that we kind of formulated throughout that strategic planning process. And like I talked about in the slides, we had several agencies awarded those funds. Kind of the way those funds, sort of the back end of that, right? The boring stuff. We look at, okay, how many youth, how many youth should you be serving a year? How much does it normally cost to pay rent, for 2 years? And kind of using that formula, like with all of the programs in the continuum of care for homelessness services. So I hope I kind of explained that well. You can ask a follow-up, but Nadia, did you want to add anything to that, kind of about the whole process, that the tedious process that we went through?
Yeah, I think you covered it all pretty well, Ariel. It was a very intensive process because, you know, you definitely want to get as much bang for the bucks and make as much of an impact as possible. So we were able to create permanent housing options through rapid rehousing, transitional options to kind of give these youth time to be able to get more stable and then move them to permanent housing. And then with the family engagement team, really being able to engage the youth that's, you know, diversion from the system altogether. If there's ways of dealing with the situation that can prevent homelessness, that's the goal. So we really covered all three of those aspects to try to get as much of an impact as possible, and also utilizing the entire homeless system and really mapping out all of the homeless and non-homeless youth programs and what's available in the community so we can weave together support for these youth. I mean, it really is true that it takes a village, and we have put a village of very strong and amazing, passionate providers together that are committed to working collaboratively to end youth homelessness. And that's how we have gotten as far as we have to be able to be awarded such a highly competitive HUD grant. We are the only awardees in New York State. And so that really is a testament to how well our community works together with both the adult homeless system and now our new youth homelessness system. So I hope that answered your question, Robert, but if you have a follow-up, please feel free.
So we only have a couple minutes left. I think we can maybe take one or two more questions. And also, if you have any specific questions for our panelists, so on human trafficking, LGBTQ plus youth, or for our Youth Action Board. Any more questions?
I also see that we have Spectrum and Channel 4 on the call. Thank you so much for joining us and for your support in getting out this information. Do you have any questions?
Nadia, I'm going to follow up on that since they weren't answering directly. And it goes to what Ariel was speaking to Robert, that this whole project comes together because of so many community connections. It's not a standalone issue. And so many have spoken about that, Julie and Susan and others. And what's amazing today is to see so many people. And I just wanted to give a special shout out to Mark Laurie, because education and school districts are an important area for our connections. And he's the only superintendent I see on here. Also, he is always an amazing ally for so many of these different youth-focused areas. And if you are from a school district, talk to your superintendent. This is not just an urban issue. And so it would be nice to have more connections to more superintendents and other programs, because it covers all areas. Kids in Amherst, kids in West Seneca, kids in East Aurora have homelessness. And especially when it happens in areas that are least thought about, it's almost harder for some of those youth to then access services. And part of this push out is really reaching out to those areas as well. So talk with your school people as well. And of course, you see the amazing amount of community services, because that's how it comes together. We all bring our resources and we work together and we support that grant. Like Robert said, it's not a lot of money, but when everybody brings their resources together, then the youth have so many more opportunities. So anyway, this has been a good program, and it's been great to be able to speak to everybody today.
Thank you so much, Sue. We have 1 minute. I want to respect everyone's time, so I think we're going to close it out. Please, you know, whether it's on Facebook or email, you know, call us, give us your feedback, you know, on this presentation and thoughts that you have or questions, and we'll follow up with you. We really want, moving forward, you know, this campaign to really be on the forefront and really be something that you know, it is made up and led by the communities that we live in, and led by young people implementing their own solutions to youth homelessness. So thank you so much. I'm going to let Nadia say the closing words, and then we're going to end.
I just want to thank you all wholeheartedly for coming and attending, for staying all the way through, for being a part of this. I encourage you all to please do exactly what we're asking. Reach out to youth in the community, reach out to each other. Together, we can do this in Western New York. We will end youth homelessness, and we will do it together. In the next presentation, I hope we'll be announcing that to you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all so much.
Take care, everyone. Bye.